In ancient times, an old, impoverished fisherman lived a difficult life, barely managing to earn a loaf of bread through fishing to feed his family. His wife and children often did not have enough food to satisfy their hunger. Every day, the poor and worn-out fisherman would go to the sea in the early morning, casting his fishing net 4 times before sunset. As dusk fell, he would wearily make his way back home. One day, before dawn, while the moon still shone in the sky, he came to the seashore. Under the moonlight, he removed his old clothes, leaving them aside, and spread his fishing net in the water. When he tried to gather the net and pull it ashore, he felt it was very heavy. Thinking that many fish had fallen into the net, he became very happy. Despite the difficulty, he managed to pull the net to the shore, and upon opening it, he saw the carcass of a donkey inside. He was greatly saddened. Scheherazade, feeling the dawn approaching, remained silent. Dinarsad, eager to hear the rest of the story, involuntarily spoke up and said, "I must say that the beginning of this story was very intriguing, and I predict that its ending will be equally interesting and sweet." At this moment, Scheherazade said that the story of the fisherman is one of the most astonishing stories, and if the Sultan permits, she will continue telling it tomorrow night. The Sultan, eager to hear the fisherman's story, postponed Shahrazade's execution for another night. On the 9th night, just like other days, Dinarsad called out to her sister Scheherazade near dawn and said, "Sister, if you are awake, I want you to continue the story of the fisherman's life." Scheherazade immediately responded, "As long as His Majesty the Sultan permits, I have no objection." The Sultan granted permission, and Scheherazade continued the story as follows. O Shahryar the mighty, the skilled fisherman, dissatisfied with his misfortune, busied himself with stitching his torn fishing net, which had been damaged due to the weight of the donkey carcass. He repaired it and cast the net into the sea for the second time. After a short while, he felt the net was very heavy, as if he had caught many fish. With all his strength, the fisherman tried to pull the net out of the water. When he opened the net, he saw a basket filled with abundant sand and pebbles. He was deeply saddened and lamented his bad luck, wondering why fate treated him so unfairly. He believed in God and was grateful, toiling honestly for a meager livelihood from fishing. He thought to himself, "Why do you treat me so harshly and unkindly? You know I rely solely on this livelihood, and I have no other income. My sustenance comes from the sea, barely enough to feed my hungry family. Perhaps my complaint is unjust, for you may prefer tormenting the righteous and rewarding the sinful. Maybe you favor the wicked over the pious." Upon finishing his complaint, he angrily threw the basket into a corner and cleaned his net, preparing to cast it into the sea for the 3rd time. This time, he encountered a handful of pebbles and shells. No one can describe the fisherman's distress and heartache at that moment. His anger had reached the brink of madness. But as dawn gradually approached, he began to pray. After the prayer, he started his supplication with these words, "O God, you know that I cast my net into the sea 4 times a day. Now, for the 3rd time, I have thrown it into the sea and gained nothing. I ask you not to despair me, just as you showed favor to Moses. Treat me kindly as you did with him." The fisherman spoke these words and cast his net into the sea with all his might. After a short while, he struggled greatly to pull out the net, which had become exceedingly heavy. Yet, instead of fish, he found a lead-sealed chest. The impression of the seal was clearly visible on the lead. The fisherman rejoiced and thought to himself that he would sell this chest to the foundryman who melts metallic objects in the furnace. With the money he would earn, he would buy some wheat. He examined the chest carefully from all sides and shook it to see if there was anything inside. He heard no sound emanating from within the chest, except for the impression of the lead seal on one side, indicating that something important must be hidden inside. The fisherman retrieved his knife from his pocket and easily opened the chest. He placed it upside down on the sandy shore by the sea. He examined it carefully and noticed thick smoke emanating from it, forcing him to step back a few paces. The smoke rose high into the sky, reaching the clouds, and thick fog descended upon the scene. The fisherman's eyes widened in astonishment, and he stared at the spectacle. As all the smoke cleared from the chest, it coalesced once again, forming a monstrous figure twice the size of the largest giants, right before the fisherman's eyes. The poor fisherman was so terrified by this horrifying sight that he couldn't even take a step back to escape the danger. As soon as the monster appeared, it repeatedly called upon the presence of Solomon, saying, "O Solomon, O Solomon, O noble prophet, I promise never to disobey your orders again. Forgive me for my mistake of not obeying your command. From now on, I will never disobey." Scheherazade, having reached this point in her tale but seeing dawn approaching, concluded her narrative. Dinarsad remarked, "My sister, you are truly a person of your word, and I have never seen anyone as faithful to their promise as you." Scheherazade replied, "Sister, this story is much more thrilling and astonishing than the previous one, and I have not yet described its interesting parts. If my gracious Lord Shahryar permits, I will continue the story tomorrow night." Shahryar, who himself was captivated by the tale, agreed to give Scheherazade another day to ensure he didn't miss out on the pleasure of hearing the rest of the story and didn't rush to execute her.